All right, I'm gonna keep running with this. A lot of people, like, you might have heard things like free your mind and the rest will follow. That might be so I did that other video saying this one for the lover in you. I was saying that's a really great line from music, but another one is free your mind and the rest will follow. There's some outstanding like dance music from the 90s that starts with that. That I think that if you go online like YouTube, you have a lot of information about like history or like spiritual things, like approaches to spirituality, like on the surface, or like maybe difficult people that are difficult to deal with, like in terms of like spiritual terms. And I think sometimes when you speak in spiritual terms, you're assigning meaning that is not fixed. So like you're assigning a fixed meaning to something that is still yet free to be defined. So even another person's behavior, their challenging behavior as it's challenging to you, that's still within some of their freedom and the freedom of what it is to exist and to be what we choose to be, to say what we choose to be, to do what we choose to be, so much as we have liberty and privilege in standing to do that. So you're defining for that person and yourself what they are and what you are, whether that would be something inspirational or something that's challenging that you're dealing with. But what might be more effective in dealing with that person, that circumstance, or even this reality, which I still think that freeing our mind is the only way to be free in any other terms. I salute that statement, free your mind and the rest will follow, and I commend that. But what might be would be another approach than to speak in spiritual terms that might be either abstract or arbitrary, just in that they're already decided for and spoken for, where life isn't entirely spoken. A person that's from not from the same part of the country that I'm from, the same hemisphere of the country, or I'm not sure if it's latitude or longitude, would say don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And that's true for a lot of us. And that's actually another example, because that person was not as proficient with the guitar in technical terms as some of his peers and contemporaries, according to one of my guitar teachers. But he was as brilliant as any musician, simply in terms of expressing himself and maybe telling stories too. So that's one way to appreciate the instrument of guitar, and also yourself and where you might be coming from, is that it doesn't have to be incredibly technical to be awesome. But it can be also incredibly awesome for being technical, and not even incredibly technical can get incredibly awesome. So what I say is that maybe a better approach to things would be to have like a method and an approach, or some kind of technical mechanics is actually what's going to allow some of the greater experiences, even the greatest of experiences, being free, socially, spiritually, religiously, personally, financially. That might be a function of technicality more than right and wrong and morality, or even awesomeness, and like saintliness or wickedness. What might be more significant is the actual mechanics. So one mechanic of freeing our mind would be the attention and the awareness of detail. Because if you're aware of detail, you can access an environment differently, you can reflect upon an environment differently, you can draw insight in an environment differently, therefore make decisions and choices differently, whether they're choices in speech, humor, work, you can imagine how many different angles and places you can go just by coming at something with a strong grasp of the details of an environment. It's profound, including like being in a social atmosphere, where sometimes in some atmosphere you're around a lot of beautiful people, but it gets to be a little bit stuffy and stifling because everyone is so proper, so correct, and so doing the exact right thing, yet somehow a little bit limited from the real opportunities that exist in that environment, even between the other and the environment. There's more opportunities to form friendships and relationships, and even like enjoy what's on a menu, that can be accessed by appreciating detail. Is where I'm coming from with this. So I made the other video about recognizing and appreciating the significance of colors and how and where they're being employed. I was having some other thoughts about details. And then I also did another video going back about the appearance of certain things in this video is about like red flags. It's like the appearance of certain things. that are significant in your experience of life. So like just the appearance of any weapon, I think maybe even the thought of a weapon, but just that a weapon would appear in your experience, in your vicinity, any vicinity that you frequent for whatever duration, that's very significant. So I saw a billboard today of weapons, and it was warning about weapons, but it was still a picture of weapons, and that for me that was significant. But also another thing that is significant is the recognition of words. So like so you, and I actually got to that point by appreciating color. So I made one video saying like, so what happens if you start appreciating the color yellow, and that usually yellow is not wasted. There had been a purpose of any color. Likely yellow had a purpose when it was employed. Even if it were artistic or commercial, it still a lot of times has a purpose if yellow is employed at all. That's one place to start, but nothing stops there. So another one would be like, what about appreciating words? Words that are not in your vocabulary. You can be very familiar with the word, and obviously we're like, what's the word? That word there, I see a vehicle over there that says oil on it. That word oil, I know what the word oil means. That's a pretty simple word to grasp if English is your first language, but yet it doesn't appear in a lot of us. I sound bogus for that because I'm a driver now, and I'm actually a professional driver. So we're supposed to always be doing pre-trips, and no less than oil checks. So I shouldn't be talking like that, but normally I wouldn't say oil out my mouth under normal circumstances if I'm not working. But just being aware of words that are not in your vocabulary is significant. Then on top of that, if you look at a word that does not normally appear in your experience of life, but it appears in a significant an exchange you had with a person that was a significant exchange where you were talking about something that had meaning to you, at that point, or that word somehow came out between you and a person that was teaching you something, or that you could learn from, or was affecting a person that was affecting you, and a particular word comes out there, then you're in a different circumstance that is not related to that directly, but it's yet another person that has meaning to you. So maybe one had been a trainer, said a word, another one had been a romantic interest, and that word either was said there, or something that word means appeared there and had significance there, and you couldn't avoid looking at it or having it come across your appearance, that same word like that. That's significant. Or you're being taught something, like say I'm doing this lesson where sometimes you're learning something, and then they start to tell you a story that you can tell what they're about to tell you has meaning, that this is a real lesson, just the type of person that's telling you that. But as they're beginning to tell you that story, that story doesn't have any meaning to you, and it's like a little bit not boring, but just like it's just like so an example is like I'm a grown man, and I don't play, like I currently don't have children, and I'm not working as a school bus driver currently. So the word bubble normally wouldn't appear in my experience. It could, because sometimes I learn about things like risk and like from Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and like the economic. I don't study a lot of stuff about economics, but it does come across the different things that I pick up. So that word bubble could appear like that, but it's just in terms of like blowing bubbles, like kids blowing bubbles, or like bubble gum. That wouldn't come across my experience a lot. But I was actually listening to something today that was interesting, and they were getting ready to talk about something, and they said that word bubble like that, and so that's when people are getting ready to talk about something, that's a lesson, but it's a lesson that's outside of your experience, with either what they're talking about or what they're getting ready to teach you, and you see a word come up that's not normally in your experience. That's very significant. Just like seeing something that's not normally in your experience, like a weapon, is significant. And then you start correlating things or you start drawing connections between things that are that may not be they may be correlated but not implicated, or that there's an indirect relationship. There's a relationship, but you can't recognize that relationship on the surface. The speaker, Nicholas Gerald Sorrenti, he has a program about called The Real News, about like things that are not taught in the mainstream media, but they affect people differently. And he said the deepest thing he's learned from that background of being that journalist a long time is that all things are connected all the time, and that's a lot of what I'm saying. But then another thing is that you start appreciating words differently, and then you can recognize a specific word, and that can have meaning. That's part of also being aware of an environment, paying attention to words in general, but also words that are not normal to your vocabulary.